often we get a vague problem statement and it feels like a trap. We don't know how to deal with it or what's the way out. Even worse, how the heck am I supposed to research if I don't know what the heck am I supposed to research about? Hi, my name is Rakshita Gupta. I'm a design manager and a community host at Design Sundays. In today's video, I'm going to share a short version of a session conducted with Vasudha where she shares on how to research with a vague problem statement. Let's check it out.
To begin with, we're going to be talking about how to analyze a research problem, what kind of framework you could pick to choose a UX research method, and life as a UX researcher. It's pretty simple, it's not that complicated, but it's filled with great stuff, so you guys can take out your notepads if at all you guys want to take notes, because this is going to be interesting. So first off, I want to begin with how to analyze a UX research problem properly. So the first part is you got to be very curious. Our stakeholders, or even when you go for job interviews, they're going to be asking us multiple questions. To be extremely honest, the problem statements are very vague. Problem statements can go from, hey, let's build a product which is edible in nature, like fake non-vegetarian food mart, right? Or do research for an application which can help car owners, or find drivers within our apartment complex. You can also help us build an automated food delivery application. And that's pretty much it. They wouldn't give us any background, any sort of other information. That is something that we kind of have to get from our stakeholders by asking multiple questions. So that is where the be curious part comes in. You just have to ask follow-up questions in order to get your metadata to begin doing your research. So till then you don't know who's your target audience, and there's so much more which I'm going to be talking about later on. You won't be able to begin doing your research as a UX researcher. Also focus on the issues. A lot of times what happens is when we start to do generative research, evaluative, exploratory, whatever kind of research that we're doing, sometimes we lose sight of the problem statement because we get swayed away by different problems that arise, right? So just having that really focused, strong-headed kind of approach where we do not lose sight of the issue or the problem, it just helps your problem even advance to a higher level. So having that all-rounded focus and undivided attention to your problem statement really helps you build the kind of product that you and your team aspire to make. And the third one is collaboration. So think of the teams you would be collaborating with and how they could benefit from your research goals. If you think about it, it's not just UX research team which is getting impacted, right? Because the product requirement could probably be coming from a business team, a marketing team, even from the design team, right? So you got to collaborate everybody to make the product outshine. Again, as I had mentioned before, we are given very unclear problem statements. From building a fake non-vegetarian food mart, it could even go for an automated food delivery application. And these problem statements are very vague, and you kind of have to ask them a lot of questions in order to get to the part where you can even solve for it. I do want to say one thing: process over solution is a big part. So especially when you're doing any sort of interviews in companies, when you're doing, there are technical rounds, right? So if there are technical rounds and the interviewer basically gives you some vague problem statement like the one written above, you do not have to think about the solution. Giving them a solution is not going to get you anywhere. They're literally giving you problem statement to see your process, right? Your eventual process is something that they want to look at, the way you think, the way your mind works, because UX researchers are literally getting paid for their mind. So they want to be looking at your thought process instead of you coming up with a solution directly. And even that's how it works in a workspace as well. You don't have to give them solution. Solution is something that comes from collaboration amongst cross-functional teams. However, you need to have a clear pattern or thought process. Okay, this is something that I'm supposed to do. This is going to be my second step. Have to come up with some solid kind of research plan. So that is something that we're looking for. Moving forward, so the first step, you have to make sure that when you're given a problem, you need to find metadata to help you solve an issue. How do you find metadata? By clarifying context. That was the process that we followed. You need to clarify context by asking them multiple questions. This is followed by a lot of examples, so you would be able to see that later as well. Then come up with a UX research methodology. So till the time you do not have a very clear goal as to what exactly you want to pursue, till then you can't be choosing a UX research methodology.
Are you guys enjoying the video so far? I'm sure you are. If you want to watch similar content, we have a huge list of videos on our channel. Make sure to check them out and hit the subscribe and the bell icon. For now, let's get back to the video.
Why do you think we need to clarify the context? We need to clarify the context in order to understand the problem statement completely. For example, there are 4 stakeholders. Karan, for example, is a marketing manager. Shubhi is the VP of the product. John is the business development guy. And Vasudha, myself, I'm a UX researcher. For example, let's say say we have a feature that helps find aliens on Earth. We did several explorations. Could you tell me which one should we go ahead with? These are kind of the problem statements that we get. As a UX researcher, what would I be able to find with these statements, right? There won't be a lot of data that I'd be able to provide only with this information. So each time you're given a chance or an opportunity to solve a problem, just make sure that you're asking them tons and tons of questions. By that I mean these questions. So back up your problem statement with supporting data that you find out by asking them. Say, for example, target audience. Who is your target audience? Which socioeconomic class or socioeconomic status they come from? What's their educational background? Do they even need the product? And much more. So who are we basically designing this product for? So target audience basically tells you that. Background. Which stage of the product life cycle is it on? Have we done any research before this? Any sort of secondary research, primary research that has already been done? And we can, gauge a lot from that and try to, if something has already been done before, so we can build up on that instead of starting from scratch. That is also something that it's nice to know, and actually a must know. It's just not a good to have. It's kind of have a must have. Solving what? What problem is the products really solving for you, right? These are kind of the questions that we need to ask. There are more, honestly. What's the goal of doing this research? Why was it designed? Do we really need to do this research? Are there any segmentations within the users? So are there any cohorts that you're making within the segment? So let's say, for example, if I were to do UX research project or a UX research study on cheese balls, I would want to first see who is my target audience, people who are trying to have things as a guilty pleasure. That could be like my first cohort who really like it, who really want it. The other ones would be people who have left having it. So that'll be my second cohort. So that'll be my dropped off users. The first one would be my active users, people who are still having it, and new users who have just switched from Lay's to cheese balls. Now I've divided my target audience into 3 segments here. One, we have new users, active users, and dropped off users, so that I have a very holistic approach or a very holistic knowledge as to what kind of people would be using my product. If they've stopped using it, what's the reason? If they have just begun using it, why? Like, where are they coming from? So that I can work on those points more and try to increase my sales or conversion rate or engagement rate, things like that. Alright, and what's the goal of doing this research? Is there a minimum viable product, or are we far into the product life cycle already? Just asking these questions, especially in interviews, make the interviewer feel that you know your shit, you know exactly what you're doing. You also understand, okay, these are the kind of criteria that this person has in his mind, and that is how I can help them, right? It's actually a very basic thing. Till the time you don't know the entire problem, you won't be able to get to the solution. For example, let's say now that we have spoken about, we have a feature that helps find aliens on Earth. We did several explorations. Could you tell me which one should we go ahead with? That is a problem statement. Moving forward with this, after asking all these questions that we just talked about, target audience, background, solving what's the goal of doing this research, and so on and so forth, we got this data. So now we know that we have a feature that helps people over 13 years old that we got from target audience. What's the age group that we're looking for? Find aliens on Earth, specifically around Goa and Area 51 US. We want to prioritize this age group first, as they're the most curious about aliens after watching Men in Black. Now we know that what's the motivation behind people wanting to know more about aliens, and how will that help people who want to come strictly into the alien arena and think about it. The reason why I picked up this example is because I wasn't allowed to talk about anything else. So I thought this would be like a fun example to talk about. We want to make sure that the design is easy to use and the aliens are easily discoverable on the feature. We have 2 designs, and we want to make sure that the search bar is easily visible to the users. Could you ask the participants which one do they prefer in reference to the ease of use? So now if you see, there's a huge difference between this problem statement getting from the stakeholders and this one what we got. There's a huge difference, and this would help me more in building a research plan for them. Now I know what kind of age group are they trying to target on. Now I know what kind of areas are they trying to target on, what's their location purpose, what's the motivation, right? Why are they wanting to do this kind of study? Now I know what exactly they want to be looking at 2 designs and comparing those. And then, having taken all these things into consideration, now you can think about time to pick a UX research method. Now you can think about these 3 stages. So there are 3 factors that we consider while choosing a UX research methodology. So the first one is stages of research. Stages of research basically consists of which stage of the product development development cycle that the product you're doing it is in. So have we already done any sort of research on this? I mean, have there already been designs that have been out and we are now trying to do iterative study, right? Usability testing, A/B testing. What are we trying to do? Just trying to understand what stage of the research is already in makes us understand I probably don't have to do generative research. Now I just have to do evaluative research. Looking at qualitative versus quantitative and attitudinal versus behavioral. So qualitative and quantitative research are basically methods of doing certain types of research. So here, methods that explore a person's impressions, opinions, or views usually result in qualitative data. Qualitative research is usually less structured and it delves deep into people's thinking and attitudes. That's what qualitative research is. The number of participants can vary and they're lesser than mostly quantitative research. Unless in qualitative research we have a lot of cohorts. That's different then. Within quantitative research, quantitative data is designed to collect facts, actions, and numbers. It is structured and it's very statistical. Quantitative data provides support when you need to draw general conclusions from your research. For example, quantitative data can tell you that your design isn't usable enough based on task completion of the users, if that is one of your metrics. However, it can't tell you what the user felt the problem was or what to change to solve the problem. That is something that you can get from qualitative data. Moving on to attitudinal and behavioral research. Attitudinal research seeks out what people think and believe, how they feel, and their emotional reaction to your product or service. It is an effective way to gather qualitative insights into users' experiences. Basically, it is to find out users' expected attitude or their current attitude towards your product or your would-be product. Behavioral research, on the other hand, the goal of behavioral research is to find out how people would act or they act, what they actually do, the tasks they perform, their instincts, and their interactions. At its core, behavioral research is that in which you observe the actions that a person takes, whereas attitudinal research refers to asking people about their opinions, right? In behavioral research, it's mostly like how would the user behave, actually kind of in the name. So behave around your product. However, attitudinal is what's the attitude of the participant or of the user around your product. One more thing, when you're given a problem, maybe in an interview, maybe in a company, which is pretty futuristic, something which isn't out, which is on its product life cycle, it's actually number one, and you are trying to figure out how would that product work out. You can't look at what would happen. You can't imagine, you can't predict. However, you can look at the current behavior of the user. You can't ever find out or predict if the user would be using your product. However, you can find out are they currently using a similar product, and if their current behavior around a similar product, or how is their current behavior generally around the elements of that future product that you're trying to solve for. If you ever want to look at the futuristic kind of a product, you need to look at the current behavior of the user to try to solve for it. Awesome. So after you've done all that, clarified context, figured out a UX research method, just to make sure that put my point across. Now that you know that your user wants to do two different designs here, that's what we got, right? We have two designs. We want to make sure that the search bar is easily visible to the users. At this time, you can think of doing an evaluative study. Again, we would need a little more context, but we could be a little sure that evaluative research is a way to go. However, maybe they're coming up with something that there's no design whatsoever. There is more of an idea that they want to explore. That is when you would know they want to do more of a generative research or an exploratory study. However, to decide those functions of research, we need more data for sure. So after you're done with all that, just gather all the data that you've collected and make an informed decision before choosing the right UX research methodology. Because at the end of the day, there are hundreds and hundreds of UX research methodologies which you can refer to. And there's also a very cool book called Universal Methods of Design, which you can refer to. It has a lot of methods of UX research and then which one you could use. However, it's a very personalized researcher's choice sometimes. But you should always think of a way of doing research or a methodology or picking out a methodology by collaborating with others around you, right? Maybe your research team, maybe your design team, even though it's a researcher's part, but you can always collaborate and ask. And usually people are nice in a company, right? So you can talk to them. You can try to understand if this won't work, what would be the pros and cons of the other one. That's pretty much it. And coming to life as a UX researcher, which was our third goal, right? We are given vague problem statements all the time, and it's not just one company or a product company that you go to that happens. It literally happens everywhere in every company. So you kind of have to ask a lot of questions to your stakeholders, people you're collaborating with, trying to understand what their eventual goal is for you to find out how you could go forward with this. So what I usually do is I make a research brief of a questionnaire and I send it to my stakeholders. Even though we've had an initial call, I've made notes, I still send them a research brief, and I can then later on, when they send that brief back to me, now I know that both of our goals align, because research is not a small process, it's a very long process. So you don't want to be working on something which is not even their goal to understand, right? It takes about 2.5 or 1.5 week to finish a research project, depending on the kind of project that you are working on or what's the need of the stakeholder. So before putting in so much effort, just try to understand, is that what exactly the stakeholder wants?
If you enjoyed this video, make sure to hit the subscribe button for more such content. See you in the next one.